Guess what's back? Business and Brews, where real business talk meets real people, and always fueled by a good brew. This time we're going podcast first, bite-sized, insightful, and built for conversations you'll want to share. I'm your host, Matt Pierce, founder and CEO of Immediate, and I'll be sitting down with leaders, entrepreneurs, and friends to talk about leadership, growth, and the stories that make business worth talking about. So grab your favorite brew, pull up a chair, and let's talk business the way it's meant to be talked about. Business and Brews, back, bolder, and better than ever. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business and Brews. I'm your host, Matt Pierce, and today we've got Will Yarbrough, the Chief Sales Officer from Arcoro. Will, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Great to see you.
Yeah, same here, man. Well, as you know, Business and Brews, we're doing this first thing in the morning. What are you drinking?
Absolutely. So I'm enjoying a warm cup of coffee out of my Ember mug. My favorite is Major Dickinson's Dark Brews. So brewed a pour over this morning. Enjoying it. I'll probably have one or two more before lunch. So
I hear you. So I do not have an Ember, but I've been hearing really good things. Matter of fact, one of the things we're doing kickoff with the whole team in January is we gave them options of like immediate branded pullover or an immediate Ember mug. What's your review on the Ember?
I've had it for about a month. I'm pretty happy with it. I routinely will make myself a cup of coffee, get about halfway through it, get distracted, and then it gets cool. So It keeps it a very perfect 138 degrees for me for as long as I need, which is great. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Let's jump in. Me and you have known each other for a while, back from your Fleetio days and as VP of sales there. And I hope we get into that. That's one of my favorite stories and favorite companies. And then there was a lot of really cool growth there. So tell us a little bit about your journey and what brings you to today.
Absolutely. From a professional perspective, I got into sales as early as I possibly could, and I've told this story a lot, and I think it's important in terms of what kind of shaped me into who I am today. But it all started with a bachelor party. Oddly enough, where I just got out of college, went to a bachelor party with one of my friends whose dad was there. He's a local, very successful Birmingham entrepreneur, had built and sold multiple companies, and so I asked him, I was like, "How do I be like you when I grow up? What do I need to do?" And he said, without hesitation, he said, "You need to get into sales as quickly as you can." And so naturally I asked why. He said, "Well, in sales, it's the only position that I know of where as a 22-year-old, you get to interface with CEOs, with board members. You get to sort of elevate yourself in the room that you're in and talk with, folks that are well above your title. And it's great exposure, it's pressure, but it's an incredible learning experience, kind of like the quote unquote real life MBA." And then, so that was great advice. And I followed it. The thing that I learned once I actually got into selling is that in order to be a good seller, you not only have to understand your business, your product, your service offering, even the financial status of the business that you're operating within, but you also have to understand all of those same things about your customer. Mm-hmm. And so it's just an incredible end-to-end understanding of business and how two businesses interact with one another. And so that was sort of the genesis point for me. And from there, I started working, where I learned to sell was at a kind of like the OG SaaS business here in Birmingham, Daxco. That's where I learned to, negotiate price, to cold call, to objection handle, all of those sorts of things. But, I always kind of had the entrepreneur bug and wanted to start something and go through that cycle myself. And so left Daxco, started a business with two of my colleagues at Daxco who had already left and kind of started doing their own thing. And that's where I learned about, obviously, not only selling, but, building something, capital responsibility, profit and loss, all of those sorts of things. I also learned that you have to be really passionate about what you do. And what we were doing at the time was trying to sort of modernize tax collections, which I think, as anybody would understand that pays property taxes or renews your car tag, big need for that. We'd love for that user experience to be better. Just turns out it's not something I get out of bed excited about, nor did my co-founder partners. So we were, fortunately, we were able to sell. And that kind of taught me about enterprise value and what's attractive to buyers and how you kind of position yourself to say, like, this is a really great asset that you can take and grow with. So that was an awesome experience. And fortunately, at that time, I got connected with Tony Somerville, the founder of Fleetio. And that's where I started my sales leadership career. And that's where I learned about systems and process and architecture and how to really scale the sales effort. So kind of taking my individual contributor experience, my quote unquote co-founder experience, and then parlaying that into sales leadership. Spent an incredible 8 years there, left, went to another startup doing fintech, somewhat adjacent to what you guys are doing at Immediate, but very, very different offering. And I learned that, what I realize is that I've kind of made a career out of putting myself in incredibly difficult and uncomfortable positions where I don't know what I'm doing. And I like that. That's just
Yeah,
where I need to be. I know I will
right.
be better as a result. So I had a short stint at a company called Denim in the fintech space, primarily in transportation. That business sold to a truck stop, which is a larger organization in the space. And then I landed here at Arcoro, where we do HR tech and software to help construction companies manage their most expensive and important asset, their people. So I've been here for about 9 months. Similarly, it's really hard. I'm learning a ton, but having a good time.
That's awesome. And look, man, I mean, what was that like 3 minutes? In 3 minutes, you just did this kind of like condensed masterclass on selling, right? Like the whole premise and what's gotten you in your career is what I hear is like curiosity and becoming an expert, right? Like I think there's a lot of salespeople out there that I say this all the time, and our team here probably like gets tired of hearing me say it, but like to a hammer, everything is a nail, right? And in a lot of cases, sales guys just want to go sell. Like I don't care what it looks like, just let me go sell it. But what I've found is the salespeople who are the most successful are the ones who understand the ins and outs so much better. I think one of the best compliments I ever got was from a guy that I worked with. I worked for a company in Boston for a couple of years. We got done with a meeting, a big group of people, and everybody got up and walked out. And this one guy, he goes, "Hey, can I tell you something? What I'm so impressed with you about is that you sell people without them realizing they're being." I'll take that compliment,
Yeah.
right? The reason he was saying that was because I went into this meeting so prepared, knowing what every person in there, what they needed their outcome to be, right? I did my prep. I went and had one-on-ones with them before, all the things, right? And so you can do that internally, you can do that externally. And what I heard from your intro is that's how you get to a position like you're in, right? You become an expert, you're curious, you know the ins and outs of the business. Like if you don't know where your company stands from a margin perspective and a cost perspective, like then it's harder for you to go out and be able to present the best offer to a prospect.
That's right.
That you can. I think it's just a good reminder of why salespeople do what they do and how you can get to the top level of it. So I know you kind of you weaved all that together into where you are today. Could you give us just like that elevator pitch of what Arcoro does, the value that you guys bring to the table?
Arcoro is an HR SaaS provider where we provide essentially, sort of like the birth certificate to the death certificate for any employees that work at construction companies. So everything from hiring to onboarding to payroll to succession planning and training and certifications. I think as everybody can appreciate, especially now where there's all these federal projects going on with data infrastructure and power and energy and so forth, there's a lot of regulation around that. We ensure that they hire the best people, that those people can kind of graduate out of their career, but be replaced, kind of pick up the mantle and run with it, and then ensure that, all those compliance measures are in place such that, when they're not swinging hammers, they're not making money. And so, we got to ensure that they've got the right folks on the job, that those folks are ready to kind of do that job. And then of course they can pick up that next project when they're ready. So we're a US focused company. We've got about 6,000 customers, roughly 200 employees all across the United States. And it's a really fun industry to be in. I get to drive around and kind of see our impact in the real world, which is really, really cool to see.
I think what's cool about what you guys are doing is construction businesses are such a major piece of the puzzle for our economy, for a roof over our heads, for the buildings we're working at in and out of, for the companies that other companies are selling. I mean, there's all these things that tie back to it. But what's so important about it is creating systems that help those operate most efficiently. So you said you're 9-10 months into this gig, so it doesn't have to be from here, but I'd love to hear a fun sales story. I think all of us salespeople have some good ones. Can you share one with me that jumps out, something you've done or something someone from your team has done to get a deal across the finish line?
New Year's Eve, about 12 years ago, when me and my wife had just met, we were up in Nashville, and I was an individual contributor seller at the time. I was trying to hit my number. And I remember sitting in the Aloft Nashville hotel at like 11:30, calling this CEO, like trying to get him to sign a contract. Sorry, it wasn't the CEO. It was like a VP of operations or something like that. And I was trying to call this guy, get him to sign the contract. It's one of those classic things where like, buyers tell you what you want to hear, but oftentimes
Right.
it's not the truth. And I just remember thinking like, gosh, I should be out with my wife on Broadway having a good time, but I'm on the phone with this CEO or VP of operations trying to get a contract signed. And what I recognize is like, this guy's not going to sign. I'm wishful thinking. I'm being optimistic. I'm having happy years, but it's not going to happen. And so what I did learn though, in not getting that deal across the line, not hitting my number, quote unquote, failing for that particular calendar year is one, like you said earlier, curiosity is so incredibly important and asking questions is so incredibly important. So in this particular case, it's fairly simple. Like, can you sign the thing? Are you going to sign the thing? And when are you going to sign the thing? Like those would have been the right questions to ask. And so it was really important for me to know, like, you always got to kind of go one layer deeper and ask that next level question to ensure that you're spending your time in the right place, because that is the most finite resource that we all have. Like nobody's making any more time, at least not yet. So you got to make sure that you're deploying yourself in the best way and on the right things. The other thing I learned though, despite the fact that that was a failure, is that I tell my folks all the time that you don't have to be the smartest or most talented person in the room, but if you work hard, you can beat everybody else. And that's always been my thing. Is like, I'm not that smart. I'm not all that talented, but I will outwork you. And so that was the thing that I learned, is that, maybe I don't have to stay up until 11:30 on New Year's Eve, but if I do, I'll give myself a better chance at success. I'm not I am advocating for work-life balance. So don't misconstrue the
Right.
feedback here. That persistence, that tenacity is certainly a superpower if you can figure out how to wrangle.
Well, and I assume that you got that deal done at some point. When did you finally get them closed?
I mean, classic situation. It was like January 3rd or
Right.
something like that. Yeah.
Oh man, I had one of those in September. I think it was like the last week of August. We were meeting with our board, and I made a comment about a deal we were working on. I was like, "Oh, it'll be done by September 30th." And my co-founder, our CTO, he was like, "No chance." And I was like, "No chance? That's bold." And he goes, "I think it's end of year." And I said, and I got a bottle of top shelf bourbon that says it'll be September 30th. He goes, "You're on." And
Yeah.
I was like stinking October the 4th. And I was like, come on, man. But, that's how it goes sometimes. But you got it. And my thought on that, especially with it being that close, is um, there's give and take in any sales process, but there's also, in a lot of cases, there's value that's derived from that work ethic that a potential client sees. I tell, sellers all the time, you are the first introduction to this company that individual is going to have.
Yeah.
Whether it's an SDR, whether it's an account executive, an enterprise seller, like right now, you are like the front door to this business.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you show up to a meeting late, or when you aren't prepared, or when you ask dumb questions, when you're not thoughtful, when you haven't gone, one of the things I love is when salespeople get on there or I get on a salesperson and they go, "Oh, I see you went to Auburn," or "I see you're so-and-so." It's like, okay, at least like they've done some homework. And so, versus I get on, somebody goes, "Oh, you live in Birmingham. Are you a Roll Tider or a War Eagle?" And I'm just like,
That's
all
right.
right, well, you obviously didn't do any homework. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, it's kind of like you've got that first chance to be a representation of what they're going to get. Because I can tell you, like, our customer success, our support, they're all world class. They're not going to see that unless you do a good job as a seller. And so all this to say is, my thought is that prospect saw the effort and energy that you, at the time as an individual contributor, were putting into this on December 31st,
Yeah.
trying to help get something done. And they go, okay, this is the level of help and satisfaction and expectation that we can hold the entire organization to, because they're all going to be like Will.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you dug in on that, because I do think that's incredibly important. And I've seen it time and time again. You've been through fundraising cycles, and how often are you endeared to the firm that gets you the term sheet the fastest, or they return the phone call, they send the email back. So, there's plenty of data that supports, speed to lead or being responsive. All of those things give you a leg up. The thing that I've learned is that oftentimes, winning in life, and more specifically in sales, is like, it's by a nose. There's a small margin of first place and second place. And regrettably, in sales, like, there is no second place. You win or you lose. It's binary.
Right.
And so why wouldn't you be as fast as possible? Why wouldn't you try to do a little bit of research and figure out who is Matt? Who is the person behind the title, such that those things are memorable. And I think for now, I've said this plenty, but for now anyway, people buy from people, and people buy from people that they like and they trust. And so until robots take that away from us, we've got a really good opportunity to continue to build and maintain that human connection. So I think you're spot on.
Let's shift gears a little bit. So we talked about sales stories. What are some of the characteristics that you can identify in an interview process that you feel like makes the salespeople the ones that are the successful? Are there things you can pick up on or identify in a process? Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, let me start with the easy stuff, like the table stakes things. You want somebody that's ambitious, goal oriented. Oftentimes, people describe sales folks as coin operated, and so they're driven by money, and that's important. But at the end of the day, like you want somebody that is aspirational and essentially trying to be a better version of themselves through their work. What are the true things behind that I think sets a really good seller apart? You hit on one of the most important things earlier, which is curiosity.
Right.
There's plenty of data and technology that is now measuring how often you talk versus I talk. So you got to listen. Are you asking good probing questions to truly understand, who is Matt? Who is Matt behind the title, and who is Matt's company? And that's really, really important. So curiosity, I would say, is number one. You got to be able to ask good questions that lead the conversation in the direction that you want to. I think the other thing that I would say that I've found has been really, really important is coachability. And on the surface, that means like Matt gives me feedback and I take it and I put it into action. But beyond that, what I mean is, how are people going about finding a question every single day that they don't know the answer to? And so is somebody really invested in their success? And, I've had the fortune of working with folks that are 1 year into their career or 30 years into their career. And oftentimes the regrettable thing about the folks that have more experience and are more tenured is that the old dog, new tricks kind of thing. Like they're not willing to learn new stuff. And the world is ever changing. I don't think the world has changed as quickly as it is now ever before.
Right.
And so if you are not paying attention, to just use a lazy example, to AI as a for instance, like how are you going to get better? Because you are going to get lapped. You are going to get beat by that person that is spending that incremental time on other things. And so I think curiosity, coachability, and being willing to learn new stuff is incredibly critical. And I found that really tees up for like a really great seller and somebody that produces at a high level. The final thing that I would say that what I would consider the superpower of the teams that I've had the privilege of leading is collaboration and sharing of those learnings. We learn the most in the field, talking with clients, talking with customers, going to trade shows, hearing what folks in the industry are talking about. And that is great for that person that gets that exposure, but how are we kind of cascading that through the organization and everyone leveling up together? So I think someone that, not a lone wolf that's solely invested in themselves, but that is willing to share that experience with others. And, another thing that I've shared with my teams over the years is that I believe the best sellers are the ones that want to be number one on the leaderboard, but they want everyone else to be a really, really close second. So you're competitive, you want to win, but you also want to see the team at large have success. And I think those things are really important.
Man, that not a lone wolf, it hits. You think about the Bulls dynasty, and you can go watch that Netflix special.
Oh yeah.
The whatever 5, 6, 7 episodes, and it felt like that team really started to gel when the rest of the team didn't feel like it's Michael Jordan and the other four of us. It was like we were a team, right? And they still won. They could still win when it was just MJ out there because he was that good, right? But when he shifted from that kind of lone wolf to being a part of the team, it just really changed the dynamic. And that's when, they had this really incredible dynasty. So that's really solid. I like the idea of you want someone who's a really solid salesperson, but is also taking time to build up the team around him. Because ultimately, to that point, ultimately you want the company to win, right? Like you want to win as a salesperson. You want to win typically because there is cash rewards for that. But when everybody wins collectively, it's where it gets to be a lot of fun. So that's really good. That's a super insightful explanation of the things you look for. You mentioned it in there. You mentioned two things. I want to cover these two things. One, you mentioned superpower. I want to come back to that in a minute because I want to talk about your superpower. I think I know, but I want to hear it from you. Before we get there, you mentioned AI. It's obviously a hot topic everywhere. I had an issue with ChatGPT yesterday where I was trying to get some things summarized and it wasn't producing my results. And I was like, what's going on here, man? Like, what am I going to do? And I'm sitting there like, well, what did I do 6 months ago. I
Mhm.
just did it myself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I just think there's this very fine line of becoming dependent upon it and then leaning on it for some of the groundwork or some of the fine tuning, right? Like, I've gotten really good at being able to use ChatGPT to help me get 60% of the way there.
Yeah.
And then I fill it in, I finish it up, right? I'm using AI in a lot of different areas. I even use AI to make songs for like my kids for their birthday and stuff. Like I create lyrics in ChatGPT and then I plug them into Suno and I make these, like funny 50s versions of 50s big band versions of songs. It's awesome. I love it. I live in a house with 4 girls. So if I'm waiting on people to get ready to go out to dinner, I just crank out a song. But tell me like a way that you, whether it's you or your company, like your team, how are you guys using AI to help improve outcomes?
I'll say I feel like I'm super behind here. So, like we talked about, this is moving and changing so fast and
Right.
accelerating so fast. And on LinkedIn, you see, people posting about, holy crap, we just had this big inflection point, this big light bulb moment of how we're using AI. And I'm like, God, I feel like I'm getting left behind here. So I'm saying this just to say that there are a lot of people that are spending tons of time on AI. And so similar to like leveraging the expertise within your own company, get out there and talk to other
Right.
people that are figuring it out or maybe have the bandwidth to figure it out faster. And so that's one thing, is that I'm just trying to expose myself, whether it be listening to podcasts, talking to folks like you, or hiring consultants, whatever I have the opportunity to do, so just to accelerate my own learning. And as a result of that, we've done a couple of things. Again, I think we're fairly early innings here, but we've done a couple of things that I think are pretty easy lists for any specifically revenue leader to implement. One is that ChatGPT is obviously, or any AI is really great at research. So like we just talked about, I can do the lazy thing. I can go to your LinkedIn. I can figure out that you live in Birmingham and that you're the CEO of Immediate. But what else could I learn about you? Well, instead of doing, 27 mouse clicks and scrolling, 300 pages, I can just ask ChatGPT to do that for me. Like, give me
Right.
5 to 6 bullet points of how Matt will know that I did some research ahead of time to learn about him. And that's going to set me up for success. That's going to save me time. Or maybe I'm too lazy to do it myself. And so the AI will do it for me. So that's one of those things is, for us at Arcoro, tell me about this VP of HR, where they're from an industry perspective. What are the things that are most likely keeping them up at night? That's a
Right.
really easy use case to implement.
Right.
That's kind of built into the way that the LLMs are working. The other thing that we found that's pretty cool is like a training mechanism. So we implement sales methodology here called Spiced, which is basically, it's like BANT, it's like MedPick, it's they're all the same thing, it's just different letters. But we sort of like loaded that into AI to essentially say, like, instead of me having Matt get on the call and role play with me, or let's practice qualification, I can just throw that into AI and say, like, here's the scenario, VP of HR, they live in Birmingham, Alabama. They're managing a 30-person construction company. Role play with me and help me qualify this deal. And so you get that kind of like the back and forth banter with a robot without having to like get somebody else on the call. So it's a good way to kind of flex the muscle and improve your skills asynchronously without having to do it in sort of like a team setting or a
Mm-hmm.
training. So that's been really great. And then the last one that I would say that's been cool is essentially serving as a knowledge base for the team. So we've uploaded our help center, we've uploaded, kind of like all of our integration documentation. And so instead of going to an engineer or a solutions consultant or a sales enablement person, you just say like, hey, tell me how XYZ integration works. And it gives you the specific feedback right there on the spot that, if I'm on a call with you and I can quickly type to the side and like, tell me how this integration works, I can give
Right.
you the answer. There's two sides to this. Like, there's credibility in saying, I don't know, I got to go find out. But also, like we talked about earlier, speed often wins. Knocking that objection down, answering that question in real time is incredibly valuable. So those are the few of the things that we're kind of toying around with from kind of like a sales enablement and skill sharpening perspective. And then I'd say the other thing that I've got it doing for me is sending me industry updates every single week. Like, what were the headlines last week? What's going on in the industry? What are keeping my customers and prospects up at night? And then I disseminate that down to the team such that they can use that in their own conversations.
Yeah.
So a few examples, but again, it's one of those things where I feel like we are way behind. We got to keep, pressing on this thing to ensure that we're taking the most of it. The other thing that you said that I do think is important is that I trust AI to help. You said 60%. that's probably a safer number. I routinely say it's like I can get 70 to 80% of the way there, and then I need to turn my brain on.
Right.
I think it's incredibly dangerous that people get lazy and they
Hmm.
just expect it to do the high quality work that a human can. And it's
Right.
just not there yet. You still have to polish it up.
100%. And man, I'll tell you, at some point, I'm going to just comb through my LinkedIn mailbox and screen clip all the trash sales outreach I get. I can't, I don't know that I could count on, it's probably one hand, but someone will leave the prompt. Like they literally copied
Yeah.
and pasted everything, right? And there was one that was like at the end, there was one that was like at the top, at the beginning, it was like, here's an email that may catch Matt's eye. I'm like, okay. And then there was another one that like at the end, it was like blah, blah, blah. Thank you. And then it says, let me know if you would like me to customize this any further for your prospect. And I was just like, really, this is what we're doing? It cracks me up when people are just like, I'm just going to lean on this. But hey, this is like full circle, man. This goes right back to the very beginning of this conversation when you talked about and what you said in your opening is, you were a curious salesperson. You were somebody who wanted to know the ins and outs. You put in the effort, you put in the energy. I think that the same way that they say, I was just reading something the other day, and this guy's like, it was a Dave Ramsey thing. It was a lady. She said, I'm concerned. My husband is about to come into a new job where he's going to be making 3 times his salary, and I'm concerned what that's going to do to us. And the response was, money is typically just going to magnify the person that you are today. So
Yeah.
if you feel like you're this, be deliberate about it, right? Like don't let the money control you. You control the money. You're going to be 3 times of like, if you're a generous person, you're going to be 3 times more generous. Like think about it in that way. I think of the same with AI, right? If you're a lazy seller today, and then we arm you with AI, you're going to be an even more lazy seller. It's going to magnify your laziness. If you are a hard worker, if you are diligent, if you're prepared, all those things, now it's going to magnify that and make you an even better seller. And it's going to cut out some of the stuff that you don't, right? Like think about the effort and energy that me and you had to put into first sales jobs, where we would do all this work just to try to figure out like what's an extra in, and would spend hours on it.
Yeah.
Now you can pull that down and go, okay, great. It's going to consolidate the amount of effort and energy I need to put into the research. I can now take all that in, and then I'm going to go do what I do really well. I'm going to go sell really well.
Yeah.
So I think that's really great. And I also really like what you guys are doing with taking like integration docs, and internal systems that you've got where you can tap into that real time. And I do think there's times where when you're trying to schedule that next meeting, it makes sense to go, hey, I've got a follow up. Can we go ahead and get something on the books for Friday at 2?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's really good. But when you can say, you know what, I've got access to that. Give me 1 second, and you just pull it up and you're like, there's times where I do that, but it's with our CTO. I'll just like Slack him while I'm on a call and go, hey, can we do this and this? And if he's in a meeting, I'm out of luck. But it's a lot better to be able to have that stuff at your fingertips. So I really like that. 2 more questions. I want to talk about your superpower, and then let's talk about 2026 and kind of what you guys are excited about. Share with us what you think your superpower is, and I'll add to it and say, and if you feel like that superpower has evolved over time, or if you feel like it's evolving, meaning it used to be something, now it isn't, or now a different superpower has come out, or how has that superpower gotten better and better and better over time?
So I'd say it has evolved. My superpower has always been my work ethic and my willingness to do things that others may not be willing to do. I think that's really important in an individual contributor role. As you move into leadership, you start to have to do your work through others. And so I'm cheating. I'll give you 2 answers. That's one. The other is that as I've moved more into leadership and have to kind of like get people to buy into a vision or a direction or what have you, I go back to something I learned from my mom really, really early on in my life, which is that, or not from my mom, but someone made a comment about my mom to me, which is that she was always really invested in the conversation, like making eye contact. She is fully in that discussion. And as cell phones are completely ubiquitous now, there's distractions all around. Think about the last time you had a conversation with somebody where they were locked in. I feel like my developed superpower, or at least an asset for me, is that I do a good job of getting people to trust me and let their guard down. from a sales perspective, if you can gain trust and rapport with the prospect, obviously that's a great thing. But you think about internal and managing other human beings. If they can be vulnerable with you, if they can share what they're scared about or what they're worried about or what they're really bullish on, you understand better how to help that person be successful, which is obviously the key to leadership. And so I think I do a good job of connecting with folks, getting them to feel comfortable with me and maybe telling things to me that they wouldn't feel comfortable saying to someone else. And that is a huge unlock in how that relationship between the two of us can evolve and how they can help me and I can help them, which is, where the magic happens.
Congrats on being at such an awesome company. And I know some of the team there and the leadership team, you're surrounded with smart, successful people. And so I'm looking forward to watching you guys continue to grow in the new year. How are you thinking about it? Anything you're excited about?
Thanks, Matt. I'm excited about is a new fresh start. I was just talking with the team earlier about this week that it happens once every 365 days where you get, at the end of the day, the calendar doesn't matter all that much, but you get to reset and have a brand new year to kind of set your resolutions and hopefully not drop them, but tell yourself how you can be a better version of who you want to be. And so I'm excited about the fresh start. I'm excited about the opportunity that my team has for the year ahead to really make an impact in the physical world around us. And the thing that I think is most exciting about that is that, as we were talking about earlier, there's so much building happening right now in the world, both physically and digitally. And so I'm really excited to see how that plays out. I'm really excited to learn from that experience and challenge myself and the team around me. So I'm just pumped to have a fresh start, to get after it and go find success. Winning begets more winning. So I'm hoping we can start that early next year in 2026.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I'll be cheering you guys on, man. Looking forward to seeing good stuff coming from our Coro team. Well, Will, thanks for being here, man. This is super insightful. I love talking to people that that know their strengths, lean into their strengths, and have proven time and time again that they're experts in their field. And it's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on here. So really enjoyed this conversation, man.
Yeah, likewise, Matt. Thanks for having me. It's a huge compliment to be here and always enjoy catching up with you. We'll have to do it next time over a proper brew, maybe at a happy hour.
I like the sound of that. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And we'll talk to you next time.